All right, the last law is the law of cosines. Now, it can be written in any of the following three ways. And again, here's the most important part. It's looking at the pattern. So you don't need to memorize three different formulas. You really just have to know the form of one. So what the pattern looks like in each of these cases, notice a few things here that are important, and you'll understand the pattern. Some side squared equals the other two sides, each squared added together. And this part on the left, the first three terms of this, look just like the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're going to subtract from that 2ab cosine c. Notice that the side that you start with out here that's squared is the side that's across from the angle that you find the cosine of here at the end. Also notice that a and b here that are squared are also here multiplied by 2 in the middle of this last part. The same is true here. A is squared here, angle A is out here. B and C are here, B and C are here. B is squared here, angle B is out here. A and C are here, and A and C are here. Okay, now law of cosines is used when you're given side, 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 or side, angle, side. Okay, so for example, find the length of side R in the acute triangle. Now in this case, we have side, angle, side. Okay, we have C and the angle between C and T. So I'm going to say we're looking for R, so I'm going to start out with R as the outside part. So R squared equals, and it's going to be C squared plus T squared. Remember, it's one side squared equals the other two sides squared added together. Then we're going to subtract from that 2 times, and I'm going to use these two again. So C times T, and that's times the cosine of the angle across from this letter that I started with, which is 36. All right, now R I don't know, but I do know everything else. So that's 45 squared plus 52 squared minus 2 times 45 times 52 times the cosine of 36 degrees. And this is one of the easier forms of the law of cosines, because if I'm solving for a side, I can type this into my calculator carefully in one long expression and get the result. So when I type all that in, I get R squared equals 942.8. Okay, so R is found by taking the square root of both of those things. The square root of R squared is R. The square root of 942.8, 30.7. So the length of side R is approximately 31. Okay, now this example, I'm looking for the measure of an angle. So we have to be really careful with the math here. You'll see why. This is side, side, side. Okay, so I'm looking for angle Q. And that tells me that in my formula then, at the end, I'm going to have cosine of Q. So that means I'm going to start out with side Q. So Q squared is going to equal E squared plus D squared minus 2ED times the cosine of Q. I have to find Q, so I'm going to start out with side Q. I know Q, that's 250 squared, and that equals 175 squared plus 225 squared minus 2, and I use those again, and that's times the cosine of Q. Now in this case, my variable is the angle. I got to be careful here, and here's the reason why. This last part here, the minus 2 times this times this times the cosine of Q, that's all one expression and multiplied together. Okay, so watch what happens with the math as we go. 250 squared is 62,500, and that equals, okay, when I square each of these and add them together, I get 81,250. And that's minus, now 2 times 175 times 225 is 78,750. And that's still times the cosine of Q. Okay, now this is the part that a lot of people make a mistake. You can't subtract 78,750 from 81,250 because this is a number, but this is a number times the variable that we have. So it's kind of like 5 minus 2x. You can think of it as this is a variable expression, this is a number expression. So I can't subtract those, just like I wouldn't do 5 minus 2x doesn't become 3x. Okay, so what I have to do is subtract 81,250 from both sides. Okay, so on the left, 62,500 minus 81,250. So I get negative 18,750 equals negative 78,750 times the cosine of Q. Now I divide both sides by this negative 78,750. So when I divide that, I get 0.2381, and that equals the cosine of q. And just like we did in some of the examples and problems before, if I'm looking for an angle, I have to do the arc cosine. So q equals the arc cosine of 0.2381. And that becomes 76 degrees. So q is approximately 76 degrees. Okay, as a quick recap, sine, cosine, and tangent only apply to right triangles and only the acute angles in them for now. The area of a triangle with given side angle side can be found by the formula area equals 1/2 AB sine C. The law of sines is used when you are given two sides in an angle or two angles in a side. So angle, angle, side, or side, side, angle. And lastly, the law of cosines is used when you have either side, 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 or side, angle, side.